Welcome to episode 1298 of The Sleeper and the Bust. I am Justin Mason, joined as always on Sundays by Jason Collette. How you doing, my friend?
I am doing well, man. Lots of baseball this week. I was able to see Durham Bulls play 3 times this week in Charlotte. Took my daughter to a doubleheader and took my son to the Friday night game. And like each one had its own things, right? The doubleheader was because Wednesday had been rained out, and the second game we were completely distracted watching the Hurricanes blow a lead to the Rangers, and they get knocked out of the Stanley Cup playoffs. So I am now fully in baseball mode with that. And then Friday we had a pretty nasty rainstorm come through in the middle of it, middle of the game. So it was, but we got to see a lot of stuff, and I can talk about that too. But it's a lot of minor league baseball, and it's a great time. And I am absolutely here for Seth Lugo and Ranger Suarez winning the Cy Young in each league. I mean, we should just go ahead and print their names on the trophy at this point.
Let's do it.
This is never ending, right?
Let's call the season right now. Well, actually, let's not, because none of my stakes leagues are in the money right now. So let's wait till my teams get a little bit better. But pitching has not been a problem for me, or really for a lot of people this year. I mean, unless you've just been decimated by injuries, because the ball continues to just be dead. Where are we at on that right now? I know you've been tracking everything. Are we? We're seven weeks into the season, I think, at this point. Like, is this going to continue to just kind of be a dead ball season?
So, yeah, we talked about this. If we look back, go back to early April episodes, and we could pretty much do this every year. Every year, I've about 2 weeks in, we'll say, this is where things are going. This is what the data is showing, because it's been a strong leading indicator. Last year, it was a little off. Yeah, last year it looked hot early, and then it wasn't. But this year, I mean, we are far enough. Early on, I said it's going to be a down year. And we are still there. We're tracking there. So like one metric we've often cited is home run to contact. And that's just taking home runs, at bats. Well, why do I always, this is such a simple formula. I should know this. It is home runs divided by the total of at bats minus strikeouts. So we're talking about the home run when the ball is put into play. And so to get for context, this time last year on this date, we're recording this. So games of May 18th of 2023, home run to contact was 4.59%. That was the second highest figure of any time during that. We had a final season. I'm looking back at some of the other ones, but 4.59% is what home run to contact was on this date last year. As play begins today, home run to contact is 4.03. That is a 12% difference. And so when you hear, because I've listened to a lot of podcasts this week, and it's been like, oh, hey, weather's going to heat up. Well, guess what? Weather heated up last year too. And that's why I like to look at things over the same time. And there's not that much difference in the weather this season than it was this time last year. And I say that as a day that I feel like I'm in your backyard, because it's like 68 and kind of partly cloudy and misty a little bit here in Charlotte. So it's, but the weather it's always like this. And so the fact that we're still down 12%, and this number has been consistent. I have seen this number around 11 to 12% all year long. And to me, it's not the baseball. For those watching the recording, it's not. This baseball feels the same. And even when we were at the minor league game Thursday, my daughter got a foul ball, and they're using major league balls in AAA. And there's no high seams. It doesn't feel like a cue ball. It actually feels it's mushy. And it's because and to me, it comes down to storage. This is all about how the balls are being treated and stored before they go out on the field. All 30 parks have humidors. They all have the same settings, apparently. And because you look at the fly ball data, the ball is going 3 to 4 feet less than it was over the same time last year. And I keep wanting to stress that, because, you look at the whole of 2023, you'll see things, but you go into Savant, you can do the search and say, I just want March, April, May data. Just show me that. And over that same time frame, the ball is traveling about 3 to 4 feet further. And just think, as you're watching games right now, how many times have you seen a ball off the bat? You're like, oh, that's gone. And it's caught at the warning track. It's happening. I don't know about you, Justin. I see it 2 to 3 times a game at a minimum. At a minimum. I'm like, that ball should have been gone. And it's not.
Yeah. I mean, it's a clear issue right now. And I mentioned this on Friday when I was recording with Paul, like, who knows what MLB does, because we've seen them mess with things mid-season before. But right now, I think you have to kind of go with the thought that, hey, this is the way baseball is going to be played here. over the course of the next few months and adjust. I mean, we talked about John Gray as a guy that I felt like, hey, I think he's benefiting a lot from this. And while I expect him to regress, I don't expect him to like regress back to what his numbers were last year. I think he's going to find, a nice little median in there and kind of be a pretty relevant pitcher for all formats. So just don't worry too much about like, hey, it's going to heat up. Yes, it's obviously going to heat up in the summer, but it may not be as drastic as a lot of people are expecting.
And this is where, when you look at it, for certain pitchers, like Joe Ryan always comes to mind. Somebody with home run trouble, like, oh, this should be better. And then he had the outing this week where he was giving up home runs. So it happens. But definitely the ball is not traveling, and so maybe some of your other fly ball pitchers that are have been more at risk previously can survive in this manner. I mean, I love this for John Gray as somebody who's been a long time John Gray truther. I love this. In XFL, he cost me like $16 last year. This year, he cost me $4. It's like, yay. So it's, I'm happy to see that success. But again, the only thing that could see it, I continue to track this only because, like you, I have this tinfoil hat theory that baseball may be like, ooh, let me change the humidor settings and be like, let me crank it up a couple of dots and see what happens. But again, the difference in home run to contact, I've been looking at this pretty much on a daily basis, but only really talking about it on a weekly basis. It's been consistent 11 to 12% all season long. And so to date, they haven't touched it yet. Now let's see what happens through Memorial Day weekend. When it's summertime, we want to draw more fans to the park. It's a little hotter. Do I really want to go to the game? Let's see if they crank it, and then let's see what happens. But so far, year over year, it's a down year. But the flip side of that, stolen bases. And that's something we continue to talk about because that's where the runs are trying to come from. And we are going to set the current and recent memory. So I will go back to like 1987. The year that was the end of the Vince Coleman 3-year run of 100 plus steals, right? 1987 was the highest single stolen base total in recent memory, and it was just under 3,600. Last year we had 3,503 steals. We are on pace to go over 3,600 steals this year. That's what's happening in the league. The league wide attempt rate is up 6%. Over last season. I can't break it down by the specific date. That date is not available. I can tell you that the league-wide success rate is up 6% over the entirety of the 2023 season. The league was attempting stolen bases 6.5% of the time when the next base was unoccupied. This year it's 6.9%, even though the success rate is down. Last year we closed at 80.2, and right now as play starts today, it's 78.8%. But the league just did surpass 1,000 steals in yesterday's game. They entered the day at 997, and we're currently sitting at 1,016. So they swiped 19 bags yesterday, which kind of feels low. I guess, was De La Cruz not playing yesterday? I mean, what was happening? Because there are some things. De La Cruz, it's worth mentioning him because how historic he is right now. Going into play, now I didn't look at Saturday's data, but going into play on Friday, he had 43 chances where the next base was unoccupied. He has attempted 35 steals in those 43 chances. That's an 81% rate, just over 81%. To put that in historical context, prime Ricky Henderson never got over 80% attempted rate. Success rate, we know for his career he was there, but attempt rate, prime Ricky Henderson was never there. Tim Raines was never over 70%. Lou Brock was like 52% at his prime. Vince Coleman, back when he was running, had those 3 consecutive 100-plus stolen base seasons, he was not even over 70%. So what we're seeing right now from them, from De La Cruz, is historic, and the Reds are at the front of the pack in attempting. I was looking at attempt rates that using that same metric, stolen base opportunity, the league-wide average is 7%. Cincinnati leads the league at 18%. And the Nationals are right behind him at 16% as they continue to look for ways to manufacture offense. Nobody else is above 11%. So those two teams are out there. And that's where I feel things are right now, is because the ball's not traveling as far, teams are being more aggressive on the base pass. except for your Giants. Sorry, dude.
Yeah.
And they are. We made this off air. That Ellie De La Cruz has successfully swiped more bases than the Giants have even attempted this year.
Yeah, it's unreal.
It's awful. And we thought Bob Melvin may. I don't know. I thought we can't blame Gabe Kapler. We tried to. We said this was a Kapler issue.
It's clearly an organizational philosophy.
So that's where I see this is like, even though the teams are less successful right now, they're still trying. I mean, my Rays are out there trying to steal bases. Jose Caballero has leads the American League in stolen bases and caught stealing and pickoffs. So it's like he's trying for the triple crown there with that. So it is, teams are trying to push, trying to find offense in different ways, and being more aggressive in the running game for some teams appears to be the way that they're going to do this to make up for the difference with the lack of home runs so far.
Yeah. I mean, this is something you need to continue to monitor. Jason's going to monitor it for us in a lot of ways. So we'll definitely check back in probably at the beginning of June and kind of see where we're at in terms of stolen bases, in terms of, how the ball is traveling, if we're something we want to keep track of, because if Major League Baseball does make changes, that will change the fantasy landscape. And we know how much they love to make midseason changes for no apparent reason and not
never tell us.
Yeah, exactly. So
we have done nothing.
Yeah.
All is well. Kevin Bacon. or the Iraqi the press guy back in the war. We're doing great. Everything is wonderful.
So we're going to talk about some FAAB, and then we're going to dip into the mailbag a little bit. Not only because, one, some people asked in our Discord, like, hey, you mind answering some mailbag questions on Sunday? So we got a couple mailbag questions. But also because this is a really boring week of FAAB. Like, it's not super packed. We don't have like major call-ups or anything to kind of go over, or major injuries that are going to affect the landscape of things. So we're going to kind of breeze through FAAB a little bit, and then we'll talk some about mailbag questions. Let's start with Alec Marsh, who came off the IL. He's been pitching fairly well this season. He's got to start versus Detroit, and then he'll line up for a two-step next week. So he's going to be a very popular name in FAAB. Where are you at on Alec Marsh?
What's his two-step next week?
Give me a second, and I will look it up.
He's pitched while you're doing that. I mean, he's pitched well enough, surprisingly well enough. It's kind of like Seth Lugo when we made the AL Cy Young, but Seth Lugo has had some skills. Alec Marsh has never really put it together for a long enough time for us to say, wow, look at this. And then here he's doing well. So it's nice to be able to see Kansas City. They're getting things done there in that division. So, the matchup this week against Detroit is good enough for me to be like, I know they just like really laid waste to Arizona the other night. Paul was texting us, hey, Detroit has 17 hits against Arizona, and Jake Rogers is 0 for 4 strikeouts. Man, I had way too many shares of him as my second catcher. Thankfully, he is on my bench and all my DCs now. But I've decided to start my third and fourth catchers over Jake Rogers at this point.
So Alec Marsh will line up for a home start versus Pittsburgh, and then at Fenway versus the Red Sox.
I'm in on that.
Yeah, I am too. So I've been rostering Alec Marsh in a number of 15-team leagues. He made a little bit of a pitching change or pitch mix change in spring training, and it seems, I'm actually double checking to make sure, see if it has actually stuck around in season. Oh, not really. No, I guess so. I mean, he's throwing the curveball a little bit more, but for the most part, it looks about the same. But he has had some added velocity. So I think this is a good enough start. Marsh isn't a talented enough pitcher where you're going like, hey, he's like an every format kind of guy. He's more of a team streamer in 15s and a straight streamer in 10s and 12s. But I think this is a set of pretty decent matchups you can take advantage of. So if he is available in your league, I think this is someone I would kind of take a gamble on that pickup this week. All right, the next one is one I'm never going to go back to the well on. You burn me like the way Alek Manoah burned me last
he's going
season.
Today against my boys, and let's see what happens here.
Yeah, but he has been one of the more picked up players And he will probably continue to be one of the more picked up players because I think people are like, hey, maybe he's back. Maybe he's the guy we thought he was going to be heading into last season. I am a lot more skeptical on Alek Manoah. He does have, like I said, he's starting today versus Tampa Bay. But again, he gets Detroit next week in Detroit. Where are you at on Alek Manoah?
I'm trying to figure out. I don't understand where he is, because there have been times where he has been utterly dominant and when he's been down in the minors, and then he comes up at the major and he absolutely just loses it. And he is his release point, everything goes away. And so I'm glad we're recording early today, because I definitely want to sit down and watch this particular start. But I'm with you. I'm keeping him. I don't have him anywhere. I want to keep him at arm's length, but I'm more intrigued. It's kind of like a train wreck. I have to watch this to see what happens. Yeah, I can't stop watching, because every time there are times when it's there. And I think last time he was up, I made the comment to somebody. It's like, if he's going to find any success as a major leaguer, perhaps it's like, just go in the bullpen and just throw sliders all day long. Go be Matt Whistler, go be Chaz Rowe. Just go in there and just heave a bunch of sliders and do that, because his success is truly around his fastball command. If he has it, he can be good. If he doesn't, he's an absolute disaster. And it's boom or bust with him. And so I'm really curious today to see where things are for him. It's just, to me, it's amazing to see where he is now compared to where he was in 2022. It's just like, this guy was utterly dominant, and then he has just turned into an absolute shit show when he's been up in the major leagues.
It's honestly I've been playing fantasy for 20 years, a little over 20 years, and I cannot remember a non-injury related drop-off like this bad, at least not in a really, really long time. Like, this was just a straight, and especially from a young guy. It's one thing when a 33-year-old or a 35-year-old like just all of a sudden falls apart. But from a guy who is, he's 26, he was 25 last year when like all of this kind of just randomly fell apart. Like, I just, to me, like, I don't know that we can trust it. Even if he comes out and like shoves, I know he's going to be a major FAAB pickup for people. Like, there's no saying that next week he won't just be terrible. I mean, you look at his 2 starts already in the majors. He had 1 start. He had his start last week, which everybody is all excited about, with 0 earned runs, though there were 3 runs given up, in 7 innings with 6 strikeouts. People really, really excited about that. But his first start against the Nationals, he went 4 innings, gave up 6 earned runs. And if you watch that Nationals game, which I did, he actually got out of 2 bases loaded jams, if I'm remembering correctly, where he should have given up more runs than 6. So I just think it's going to be so hard to predict start to start on Manoah that I just don't want to deal with it.
Well, context wise, so folks understand, we're talking about in 2022, he gave up 16 home runs in 196 and 2/3 innings. And since then, he's allowed 18 home runs and 98 in the third. 18 and 98 in the third, along with 64 walks. And this, like I said, it's fastball command. The slider is good, and it can still, like I said, he could go out there for 2 innings and just throw all sliders and be effective. But if you're a starting pitcher, eventually you're going to have to. And the thing about his slider, what makes it effective is it looks like a strike long enough on his journey to the home plate where guys will have to protect. But if they are basically like, I'm going to look slider and see if he can make him throw a fastball for strike. And I'm go ahead. And if I take a slider for strike, I take it. But again, 64, just all of the indicators are like, whatever. And yeah, he did it against the Twins. And I can't explain that. I truly can't. I can't explain how he did it against the Twins. Like you said, you watch the National start, but then go back and look at what we had to deal with last year until they shut him down in August. But he didn't have a game without a walk. Like last year, just before the All-Star break against Detroit, 6 innings, 1 run, no walks, 8 strikeouts. And then from there on, no strikeouts, 5 walks, 6 strikeouts, 4 walks, 6 strikeouts, 3 walks. And we have 4 home runs over 5 starts. It's just like, it's a game-to-game adventure. And truly, it could even be an inning-to-inning adventure. Like, you may sit down and watch the first inning today and be like, he's back. And he may not even make it out of the second. I wish him well. I hate to see a guy that was going so well fall apart like this. But I mean, it's got to be in the head, because velocity wise, the velocity is still there. It's just something that his fastball command wavers from almost plate appearance to plate appearance.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree with you more. So I think it is a pass for us on Alek Manoah. Do it at your own risks. But speaking of doing it at your own risk, Jalen Beeks seems to have entered into the closer conversation in Colorado. Now, Beeks was a guy that I was a little bit excited about when he came up through your guys' system over in Tampa Bay. But I am not a big fan of rostering Colorado closers. Where are you at on Jalen Beeks?
You look at this. This is what really speaks to the situation of the closer market, because quite frankly, it's been a rather stable, like the last month or so. Just like we haven't had anybody really, except for Craig Kimbrell, truly like, hey, you're out. Or the weirdness that is Duran, who's now just like pitching the 8th inning because Rocco Baldelli just loves to troll fantasy managers. But you look at this, you're like, okay, 6.2 K9, 4.9 walks. Yuck. Yeah, but he's the closer. I mean, he may Sean Chacon the rest of this season based off, because they don't really have any other options. But right now, the kind of the thing is Colorado has inexplicably been on a hot streak. And so he's been out there saving games. But once Colorado becomes Colorado again, what is Jalen Beeks going to save? So you missed the goodness on this one. And what is he get? This is, he was just in the right place at the right time and enjoyed it. He's at 4 saves right now. I could make a case he may not even get to 12 by the end of the season.
I think that's a really good case to make. I mean, we're talking like, you look at, if you watched his most recent save attempt, he walked 3 guys in that inning.
That's what he does. His fastball doesn't go straight. That's the thing. His fastball is a high riding fastball, and it's more movement than anything else. And it's like, you let it go and see what happens.
Yeah, I think this is a really risky proposition, and I think the people who are going to go out and spend a bunch of money on him in FAAB this week may be having to go out and spend more money on Justin Lawrence or, Jake Bird or whoever is the closer in 2 weeks. Because I just don't know that there's anybody good enough in this bullpen. This is not a situation like Daniel Bard a few years ago, where he was clearly the best reliever in the bullpen and was able to figure out enough to like get away with things in Coors and then be dominant on the road. Like, there is no guy like that in this bullpen this year, and Jalen Beeks definitely isn't one of them. Obviously, if you're like really needy for saves right now, and there are teams looking like that are going, hey, like I need saves. Saves can be saves, but one of the reasons like why I like to invest in saves in my draft is because I don't want to be in this position where I'm having to go hard after a guy like Jalen Beeks.
Yeah, don't be that Jaron Duran owner who's pissed at Rocco Baldelli right now and be like, I gotta go get Beeks.
I mean, look, but this is what they've always kind of done with him, right? Like Rocco Baldelli's from your Tampa Bay system from back when they would rotate closers all the time. Like, and they like to put Duran in the best situation, for the team, and that's not always the ninth.
Oh, so trivia question: How many different Rays relievers already have saves this year?
I'm gonna say 7.
You're close. 8.
Oh, see.
It's nuts between the two different between the IL stint with Fairbanks and the cut finger that he had, but 8 different guys already have, like this week. Nobody was starting him, but this week Erasmo Ramirez got a win and a save this week.
Yeah, it doesn't surprise me.
It is, it's what they do, but nobody has more than 4, but 8 different relievers have at least 1 save.
One of the prospects getting called up this week is Miguel Vargas, Dodgers prospect, who at one point was considered like a top 10 or top 20 guy in Major League Baseball in terms of prospect pedigree. He hit his first go around at the major leagues. It didn't go well, and he never really got enough time to kind of turn things around. Last year, he hit 195, 305, 367 in the majors. Though he did have 7 home runs and 3 stolen bases in that time, he was crushing the ball as he usually does down in AAA this year. 8 home runs, 8 stolen bases, hitting 295, 436, 583. Is this the time to go out and pick up Miguel Vargas?
No, because where's he going to play? I mean, right now you look at the depth, you look at the chart, and basically the best future you can outline for him is short side platoon at a corner outfield position. He last night he played left field, and Jason Hayward took the bench. But Jason Hayward played on Friday night. They got Vargas in there yesterday, even though it was against a right-handed pitcher. They did get him in there. So, we called you up. We don't want you sitting the whole time. But, you look at the way this all-star lineup is projected, and it's tough to see a clear path of playing time for him for shallower leagues interest. In a normal season, you would think, okay, they have him up to try to showcase him, try to make a trade. But do the Dodgers really need to do anything other than just show up and just stay healthy until they get to October? They don't have a need right now. I mean, even losing Sheehan and whatnot, they don't have a need. And so it is what it is. In deeper leagues, sure, take a shot. Shallower leagues, I don't see enough playing time here to be worth it.
Yeah, I mean, there is some allure to a guy like Miguel Vargas, but I also don't see him as a guy that is like a massive difference maker in fantasy unless he's getting full-time playing time. And I agree. I have a hard time seeing where this full-time playing time comes from, especially because he's not a particularly strong defender. So if we could say like, oh, well, at least he's going to be an elite defender and that might get him some playing time, I don't see that in Miguel Vargas. So for me, I'm, 15-team leagues, he'll probably be in the waterfall somewhere. But outside of that, I don't know that I'm that interested. What about Otto Lopez, who I'm not going to lie, didn't even know who Otto Lopez was.
He's a fake name. He's on the whole Tom Murphy depth chart, right? Fake catcher. Otto Lopez is going to be our fake second baseman, right?
Mm-hmm. But he's finding some playing time. He's hot. 283, 333, 543 with 3 home runs and a stolen base, striking out less than 18% of the time right now. Any interest in Otto Lopez?
So he could come up. I mean, his skill would be batting average and speed. That's where his game is. And so in Miami, all those things are possible. And if he can somehow turn this into a John Birdie-like situation for himself and try to do something like that, great for him. I mean, he's had a couple of seasons. He was in the Toronto system for a while. A lot of double-digit stolen base seasons, a lot of single-digit other numbers, but the batting average was always there. So if he can turn himself into a John Birdie type where it gets on base and runs, I'm intrigued in deeper leagues. But again, shallower leagues, there's not enough bat there to carry this unless he does either one of those skills to the extreme.
Apparently, he was in the Giants system earlier this year before getting moved over.
But he was too fast to be in the Giants system.
Yeah, so you're just about to make that joke. They're like, oh, a guy who can make contact and steal bases? Why would we want that?
He's got to go. He doesn't fit our profile. He's going to show up the other guys.
Yeah, I mean, I think like in deeper leagues, if you're looking for stolen bases, he's making a crap ton of contact, like 96% zone contact, which is amazing. And so, like, yeah, I mean, do I think that he's a guy that is gonna keep up like elite numbers? No, but I think like, hey, why can't he be maybe a version of John Birdie? He's 25, he can run. His XBA is 311 right now, so he is kind of translating that zone contact into base hits. And I mean, I think in deeper leagues, I know I'm looking for stolen bases in some leagues. I'm very Giants-esque on some of my teams in terms of amount of stolen bases my teams have. So he's definitely a guy I would put in my FAAB bid and probably above Miguel Vargas. So I think that Lopez is a guy to kind of consider. Speaking of my Giants, Jung-Ho Lee going to be out for the season now. That's official. It's really, really disappointing. Because he was much better than I thought he was going to be. So, stash him in your dynasty leagues and hope that he comes back okay next year off of this shoulder issue. But in the meantime, Luis Matos has been called up, and he has been on fire. And I know this because he's sitting on the bench of my main event team as I switched him out of my lineup this weekend.
That's your guy? Because I had Tyler Alexander on my bench this week.
Yeah. So, and my wife, every time Luis Matos does something, he's got like 11 RBIs in his last like 3 games or whatever it is, does something. My wife goes, hey, how you feeling about your main event team? So that's a little brutal. But Matos is a really interesting outfielder, another former top 100 prospect that kind of never really, or has not at least yet, delivered on the promise of that top 100 pedigree. But he's got an opportunity to play kind of full time right now as the Giants center fielder. Where are you at on Luis Matos?
Yeah, I would say write it out for the playing time, but let's you know the skill set better than I do, but I do know like he can hit for average and he has speed, but we've already said your team doesn't use it. So this could be a one-trick pony, maybe two, depending where he hits, if he can get up there and score enough runs. But right now he's getting enough run production. It's kind of like his Johnny LaDuca moment. Like he has 17 RBIs in 26 plate appearances. That's absurd. And Johnny LaDuca did that earlier, had 10 in his first week and hasn't had 2 cents. He had 2 yesterday. So like so you missed that part of it. But if he can hit for average and maybe score some more runs, then sure, ride out the playing time and see what happens. But this was, we make the case he's at 17 RBI. I don't know if 17 more are coming in the next 6 weeks before the All-Star break, but they were there. And if the playing time's there, you have to give credence to the playing time and see what happens with it.
And I need to correct myself. The 11 RBIs he had have been over the last 2 games. Like that. Yeah.
I missed that. That's my West Coast. Yeah. I go to bed too early because I'm old. Wow.
I guess you just leave them in against Rockies pitching, even when they're not in Colorado.
Hey, Justin, how do you feel about your main event?
Yeah. Feeling like I'm missing 11 RBI. The worst part about it, too, is I dropped Conforto to pick him up. And I did this with Conforto earlier this season when he hit 3 home runs. Like he was just sitting on my bench one week when he just went off. But is what it is. This is, that's how sometimes the game is played. I really like Luis Matos. I remember having a conversation with Michael Salfino earlier prior to the start of the season. And Salfino's a big fan of Matos as well. And it was like, hey, I'm arguing with John Legueza. He doesn't like Matos. I do. I see like there's a chance for him to carve out like 500 plus plate appearances and be really good. And I said, the problem is he needs an injury to even be on the team. And that ended up being true, but we got the injury, right? Conforto's hurt. Now Jung-Ho Lee is out for the season. Mikey Yastrzemski can't stay healthy, for the most part. So like, this is an opportunity. Now, I don't think there's much power in the profile, and especially in that large park in San Francisco. I think that's going to be a problem. I think the other problems are the Giants don't run. Like Luis Matos can run, and I don't know that they're going to let him. Obviously hasn't been up for super long, but no stolen bases. And because he doesn't walk, he's a very aggressive hitter, just generally speaking. He's not going to hit at the top of the lineup. So like he's probably going to continue to hit somewhere between like 5 through 8. And that kind of limits his run production. So while I like him as a player and he's making amazing zone contact right now, obviously that will probably come back down to earth a little bit, but like he's a guy who can make a lot of contact and run. But if the Giants aren't going to let him run, if they're not going to put him at the top of the lineup, it really limits kind of his upside.
Right.
So until we see that, like, yes, I think in deeper leagues he should be rostered, but in 10s and 12s, you really need to see what the Giants are doing with him. Will they move him up the lineup? Will they let him run? Because a lot of his value is going to come from those two things. And right now we're not seeing that.
Fair enough.
All right. Then I feel like it's, time-honored tradition that every year we talk about Kevin Pillar at one point of this season. But he's hot right now and playing regularly in Los Angeles for the Angels. Any interest in Kevin Pillar?
I mean, it's a playing time thing, so why not? But I mean, Pillar's what I want to dig into is, his skill as he's aged, which is not, not uncommon for guys, is, they're going to be a short side platoon. And this year it's holding up. He's hitting 370 against lefties, but he's also hitting 286 so far against righties. And that's been a skill that's, he's above his skis there. I wanted to go look and see, where things, just to put that in context of where things have been for that. So everybody understands just how bad he has normally been against righties. 228 last year, 231. Then he pulled a 288 out of his hat and during COVID. But he has traditionally been a 240-ish hitter against righties, and he's hitting 323 against them this year. So there you go. That's why it's happening, and that could go away as soon as quickly as it showed up. But he is getting playing time because they kind of are out of options right now in Anaheim, and it is what it is. Sometimes that lineup, you look at it, you're like, oof, like Lance Lynn gave up 4 in the first inning to those guys the other day. It's like, wow, how did you? That should be like, you should be cut if that happens, because that is not a great lineup these days. Willie Calhoun's hitting cleanup. Now, Willie Calhoun is hitting well, but he's hitting cleanup. That is a Salt Lake City lineup, not a major league lineup at this point.
This is a team to stream against, that I keep saying. And the Troutless Angels are not a team you're worried about. And one of the things you are worried about is the lineup, though, because I don't know what Ron Washington's doing with the lineup. You've got Joe Adell hitting 7th, Kevin Pillar hitting 4th or 5th sometimes, but he wasn't in the lineup yesterday against a righty. He's not in the lineup today against a righty. So are we seeing him go back to being a platoon guy? I don't know.
And who is he being benched? I'm looking at the lineups today's lineup, it's a Sunday thing. He's like, let's give Cole Tucker time. Let's give Mickey Moniak. It's like, that seems to be like old school manager thing. It's like, it's Sunday. Our second catcher and our whole bench, they're all going to start today. Which is why I never go into a major league game on a Sunday, because it is kind of like your half day off and they do this to this. But yeah, that's where I'm looking at the line. I'm going, okay, why? Just give me your best guys. But they're on the struggle bus. So
I think this is a good week to kind of watch a guy like Kevin Pillar too, though, because the Angels have 6 games this week, 2 lefties, 4 righties. So if he's in versus the majority of those righties, then that's a pretty good sign that he's probably going to continue to play for a little while. And he does have speed. He's a fantastic defender, so that could keep him in the lineup, especially if they decide, hey, maybe Joe Adell's defense continues to be a problem, or if they just want to kind of bolster, or help the pitchers out a little bit with a guy like Kevin Pillar in the outfield. That being said, it's Kevin Pillar. He's 35 years old at this point. He's way past the prime of his career. He's best served as a defense replacement guy. So I wouldn't go overboard on a guy like Kevin Pillar. But this is the FAAB situation we're in this week. It is
not good.
Yeah. So a good weekend to enjoy time with your family and not spend hours upon hours on FAAB on Sunday.
No doubt. If we could do a bit of a Rays corner this real quick, only because I went to a few games, just a couple things to point out. One, Brandon Lau finally restarted his rehab assignment last night, going 1 for 4 with a single. He was in the lineup last night for the first time. He was not in the games that I went to Thursday or Friday. On those Thursday and Friday games, a couple of things to point out. One, I guess I got to see Shane Baz pitch on Thursday. I do not see him. They're getting to the point with Bradley recently back, with Pepio coming back any day now. And then they're running into an arms issue, and I don't see them doing a 6-man rotation like Baltimore's currently going into. I do see a possibility of Baz being tandemed up with somebody. What I saw from Thursday night does not instill a lot of confidence in him coming back and picking up where he left off. Velocity wise, he was fine. But this is what happens with these types with TJ comebacks. He hit 97. He was sitting 94, 95. But command wasn't there. And that's always the last thing that comes back. And he also only went 70 pitches. And they've been very, very careful with his management. But that rehab assignment is coming to an end sooner rather than later. So if he comes up, I could see him being tandemed up with Alexander, the near perfect game aside. And he wasn't pitching that well. That he had moments, but I could see that Alexander moving into a Ryan Yarbrough mode. But I only bring this up for you folks that have been sitting on Baz for a while. I'm not expecting that much. The other piece of it, the delivery looks a little bit different. I did see he's pitching from the far first base side of the rubber now, but it's a very slow and deliberate delivery. The combination of him and Pinto were being run on by the Charlotte Knights, who don't have a lot of talent, but they were attempting stolen bases and were successful every attempt that they had with that. So that's Baz. The other notable thing was Junior Caminero played second base twice in this series so far. He did not play yesterday. They gave him a day off with the way the games have played, and Brandon Lau was playing second, but Caminero has played second twice this week. So it feels like a Caminero promotion is imminent. And when he wasn't playing second, Curtis Mead was there, who we'd already seen play second at the major league level. But they're flexing Caminero around a little bit, so there may be something coming up there. And if that happens, to me, the victim's going to be Harold Ramirez on things, because Harold Ramirez, while the batting average is there, it's been infield single driven. Harold Ramirez is not somebody who is that fleet of foot. I mean, he moves, but he's had a lot of topped ground balls where the infield's playing back. I want to look up this number because he's hitting 262, but he's got a 72 WRC plus, barely any home runs, but he's had some absurd number of infield singles. And it's like, how is this infield hits? He's had 9 infield hits already this year. So to me, that's where the gaping hole would be in the offense with things. And so that's Ray's corner.
There you go. Get some good information for you guys stashing some Rays players. I know I'm stashing Brandon Lau in a couple places and Shane Boz in a couple places. So maybe when Boz comes back, I'll try to trade him off real quick and see if I can get
if you're hurting for saves, though, we mentioned what the 8 different relievers. Garrett Clevenger was the guy that did it yesterday. Garrett Clevenger looks freaking fantastic this year. He looks amazing.
And as I said, Clevenger in a couple leagues,
but he looks amazing.
Let's dive into the mailbag. 2 of the guys that probably would have been on the FAAB section, but we did get a mail question about them, are Brenton Doyle and Joey Ortiz. And the question is, who's more likely to stay relevant in a 12-team league between Joey Ortiz of the Brewers and Brenton Doyle of the Rockies?
Doyle rules.
Yeah.
Doyle rules. And in all seriousness, I had to use that movie reference, but the Brenton Doyle to me stays relevant because he's never going to lose that spot in his lineup ever. The defense is fantastic. They need it for Colorado, and Brenton Doyle runs. So I'm really happy to see the progress that he's made. You look at some of the things he's run into previously. We knew he could defend, but could he make enough contact? And he's actually hitting for average this year, and the strikeout rate has come down. It was 35% last year. It was 29%. It's 29% so far this year. That's still high, but that's an improvement, and that's what you want to see. You want to see an improvement because this guy has struck out over 30% of the time at every single level of the organization over the past 3 years, and now he's under it for the first time, and so that's progress. The speed in the minors, the speed's going to make a difference and help you outrun some of that stuff. But overall, to me, I don't know how Doyle comes out of this lineup.
Yeah, I think the easy answer to this question is I think they're both relevant rest of the way. So when you start talking about a 12-team league, which is a little bit shallower format, for me, you start looking at which guy has the most upside. And it's Brenton Doyle, right? I mean, there's power, there's speed, and he's making much better zone contact this year. 84% is right around league average. And a guy with power and speed hitting at a league average zone contact means, hey, this can be sustainable and he can actually turn into something kind of special. And then you add in the fact he plays half his games in Coors. I think if I'm making a decision between the 2, I'm going for Brenton Doyle. That being said, Joey Ortiz is making really good zone contact right now. 91%. He's a good defender. He plays every day in what is, I think, an underrated Milwaukee lineup. I did not give them a lot of credence coming into the season, and I can say right now I was wrong. I think Milwaukee is actually going to be a pretty decent, at least team offensively. It's going to be their pitching, which is a weird thing to say after years of their pitching just kind of carrying this organization, that now it's their hitting that's carrying it. So I like both. I would want both in a 12-team league, but if I'm choosing between the 2, yeah, I agree with you. It's Brenton Doyle.
And it's no knock on Ortiz because, again, this was one of the 2 guys they got in return for Corbin Burns, and so it's like they want to make sure they get something done there with things. Ortiz is playing third base now. You could see him shifting over to shortstop once Adames leaves the franchise after the season. I doubt he's re-signing there. So that's where it's no knock on Ortiz. I like his future, but right now, if you're playing for this year, Doyle's the guy that I want to have.
Yeah, I agree. All right. The next question and the last question of the day before we wrap up it's a little bit longer question, so I'll kind of just paraphrase it and we can talk about it. He also gave us a screenshot of all the guys that he's considering right now.
Oh,
or
good.
that
Thank
is
you.
available.
I need to go look at that. You know what? Let me go into
Yeah.
Discord and find it because this screenshot's not helping me.
Yeah. So what he said was, I mortgaged this season to win last season. I always appreciate that. Your flags fly forever.
Absolutely.
Go get your championships. But he's still trying to make it competitive. He's got Lee Rooker, or he had Lee Rooker, Ward, and Jimenez as his 4 outfielders in a deep 12-teamer. This is a head-to-head league as well. Obviously, Jung Ho Lee being out for the rest of the season hurts them. He's currently rolling with Rooker, Ward, Rafaela, and Pham. He's worried that Rafaela is turning into a pumpkin. He's got Doyle as his util, and Winker currently on his bench. He asked us, would we look at kind of his options and see, like, hey, is there somebody you would pick up for Rafaela? This is an OBP and slugging league with daily moves. Any thoughts on some of the guys? And I'll kind of
I can see it now. I've went into the Discord and found the screenshot and zoomed in, so I can now see it. So with it being an OBP and slugging league, I agree with him that he's got issues with Rafaela, and that is a pumpkin. And if he didn't have the contract that he had, Boston may have already made a move with him. But I'm looking through the list of things. I'm kind of surprised to see somebody like Eloy Jimenez still sitting out there. I know the format's a little wonky and whatnot, but for him, that's a name that jumps out. Luke Raley has been turning it around of late. He looks good. Palacios looks good, and he qualifies at 2 positions. Alec Burleson has been getting better. Taveras has shown signs of life. Like, I could see multiples on this list that I'd rather have than carrying Rafaela in there. If you asked me to pick like the best guy for there, I would have to defer to the talent and take Jimenez. But again, if you want to stream the position, then there are guys that are playing well right now. Jimenez obviously is not one of those, but the talent, he's easily the most talented of them.
Yeah, I think especially when you add slugging as one of your head-to-head categories, I think makes a lot of sense. I know that the OBP may be an issue because Jimenez is not typically a guy who walks a ton, but I think the slugging, Jimenez would be the guy that I probably look at. Rayleigh is another guy, but the platoon may be if you can platoon him on your team fairly well because it is daily moves. Maybe that is a situation you can kind of work through. So, but for me,
the best situation of them all, though, like Verdugo may be in the best situation given the offense that he's in. He's already got 20+ runs and RBIs as well. So situationally, Verdugo may be the best, safest play in this format. But if you want to go upside, he's got other options.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, the hard part with Verdugo is he's not a guy who necessarily is going to help you in the slugging department. So
correct.
I think it
but
kind of
it's going to get hotter soon, and he's in Yankee Stadium. Yeah, I had to say it. Sorry.
And like, I don't really trust DeLuca's playing time.
No, you shouldn't. Until they jettison Jose Siri, which I'm still holding hope for because, man, I just can't. The bottom of the lineup, the 8-9 between Siri and Alex Jackson when they're in the lineup together is yikes.
To be quite honest, what I would do here in a situation like this is I would kind of take a full stock look of my team and go, what category could be the most, effective way to kind of make up ground, because he's got a lot of stolen base guys on the list, like Darian Blanco and Johan Rojas. Like, hey, do you need stolen bases? Because maybe your team is better suited to add a stolen base guy. Do you need slugging? Then you might want to go add Eloy. Do you need like a guy who isn't like a superstar, but can kind of give a little bit of all around production and is going to play every day? Alex Verdugo. So I think this is a very contextual question that you really need to be in tune with what your team is doing and say, like, hey, is it worth it, especially in a head-to-head league, head-to-head categories or head-to-head points league, like looking at where you can make up the most ground without having to take away, because every single one of these guys is going to take away from a different category, but it might add to a different category. So you really need to take like an overall snapshot of your team and go, hey, which guy helps me the most right here?
Indeed.
All right. If you have mailbag questions, you can always send them to me via email at JustinMasonFWFB, or jump into our Discord. I always put the link to the Patreon.
Somebody just added one. Somebody just added a question, so we can close out with this. Who is your favorite buy low in a 12 to 15 team league right now?
That is a tough one to come up with off the fly. If you give me a second, I'll just kind of take a look. I mean, I don't know how much you can buy low on Randy Arozarena, but I mean, he is 160 right now. And he's still showing power and speed. MJ Melendez is another guy who I still kind of believe in. He's got a 223 BABIP. I think he's going to be better. Somebody asked me somewhere. I'm going to have to remember where he asked me, because I don't think I actually answered the question. But the question on George Springer, they're like, should I be dropping George Springer right now?
That's a great example, because I was listening to the game yesterday, and he had a single that drove in a run. And his stolen base total was finally even with his RBI total of the season. Yeah, and that's not a sentence I ever thought I'd utter with George Springer. And he's killing my tout team. Absolutely killing me right now.
The underlying numbers tell me there's nothing wrong with George Springer. And he had moments like this last season where, like, he was, he seemingly was struggling at the plate, but he actually really wasn't. He was just getting unlucky. He's running with 224 BABIP right now. He's still walking, he's still striking out 17% of the time. He's making good contact in the zone. Like, I think George Springer is going to be fine. So that's another like buy low guy that I would probably take a look at.
I hope you're right. Brenton Doyle was another guy that comes to mind, because skills wise, everything's still there. The only thing that's not there, he's hitting 216 right now. And Brenton Doyle is better than this. And I would say it's both. It's team context. The Mets are underperforming, and the Jays are underperforming. I mean, the Jays, I picked them to make the World Series this year, and they are in the absolute basement of that division. Their bullpen is atrocious. That's been a problem for them. And the offense is picking up where it left off last year, where they just couldn't score runs. They could get guys on base, and then they would just stay on base. And it's played out in the series. They were up 4-0 yesterday and lost 5-4 with things. So, I was happy to see that. But I was in on some Toronto guys, and Toronto as a whole, because I was like, there's no way this team could be this bad again in these types of situations. But damn if they aren't proving me wrong right now.
And then from a pitching perspective, Paul and I talked about this, I think, during our Friday episode. Like, Garrett Crochet, to me, like, I think he's elite. He had a couple bad starts that I think are weighing down the overall line, but ultimately everything under the hood looks fantastic. And I think, I don't know how long he's going to pitch in terms of, innings, having moved from a reliever to a starter. Like, I don't know if at some point the White Sox just say, like, hey, we're going to shut you down. So we're going to kind of protect you in what is definitely going to be a lost season. But I think that he is still an absolutely elite pitcher, and I've got zero concerns on a guy like Garrett Crochet.
I like that name. I would add Brandon Pfaadt as somebody who was not that crazy about him last year, but you look at the numbers this year, he's got 1 win and a 4.17 ERA, but he's got a 1.11 whip. He's got, the lack of walks is just awesome for me. He's got 23% strikeout rate and a 5% walk rate. These are all skills that he should have more than 1 win. Maybe he's on Paul's teams.
He's got a 60% strand rate right now. He's just getting unlucky.
So, like Paul was sending us texts, like screenshots. Yeah. He had like 6 pitchers go this week or one night. All of them shoved, and he had 0 wins to show for it.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's like he's like cursed. Like I know it's like wins are like one of the hardest things to project in baseball, but all you need to do is go look at who Paul is rostered, and that's how you know who won't win games.
We need screenshots of his roster in Discord. This is who Paul's starting this week. Don't stream these guys.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, Brandon Pfaadt to me is so you gave him an AL name. I'll give you an NL name, but that's the guy to me that I'd be looking to acquire, because the skills are much better. He should be better than 1 win and a 4.17 ERA.
One of my more rostered pitchers this year, and I'm hoping we're both right on that one. So, all right, that's going to wrap us up for this episode. Jason, remind everybody where you can reach on social media, and then plug anything you got going on.
So playing around in Blue Sky and Threads, same handle. You can find it both there. I'm trying to be more active in Discord. I've also been rather active in the Joe Sheehan Slack channel. Those guys all got together a Friday night in Baltimore. Nice. I could not make it because my girls are at the dance competition this weekend, so somebody had to stay home. But I really wanted to go to that. But I saw some pictures in their Slack channel, and if you're not subscribing to Joe Sheehan's newsletter, you should be. I've had a subscription for years, but the Slack channel is really good as well. So I did write about Ellie De La Cruz at RotoWire this week, and just like he's trying to be Eric Davis right now, and I love it. Even though I don't have him anywhere because I was like, there's no way I'm drafting Ellie De La Cruz in the second or third round. He's not worth it. Oops. Yeah. I mean, going into play yesterday, he was tied with Ohtani for earned auction value, and that's just because Ohtani's hitting 370 right now.
And the crazy thing about Ellie too is like the underlying skills that I was worried about have not gotten better.
Exactly.
He just continues to mash. Like he's so fast and he hits the ball so hard that he's gonna outrun this. And
his zone contact's still a problem. Still a problem. He doesn't expand his zone as much as he was when he was really slumping last year. But I took a look. So I initially said, okay, here's what I didn't like about him. This is why I was saying I didn't feel that he was a high second or low second, high third pick. And these are the reasons. And those were valid reasons at the time.
Yeah.
And now he is still, now if you look at, I tried to go back and do a retrospective or as military folks would recognize, an AAR, after action review. So it's like, what went wrong? And so there were a couple of things that we should have, maybe the folks that were taking him in the second or third round saw this. It's like he was 12 of 14 in stolen bases in September. And so David Bell was like, run. Anytime you're on base, run. And even though he was only getting on base at 31% of the time, he was 311 in September. They let him run. The zone contact was bad, but it wasn't getting worse. But he was not expanding his zone. Well, then I extended those graphs, and his zone contact is still below average. But he's still not expanding his zone. But when he's on base, because he's hitting the ball so hard, it's just getting through some of these things. When he's on base, again, he's running 81% of the time. He has the opportunity to run. We have never seen a player run that much. And so, when I was on with the RotoWire folks in Sirius XM yesterday, I was like, honestly, 100 is the stretch goal now. 80 feels like safe. He is already 37.5% of the way to 80 stolen bases in a quarter of the season. As long as he stays healthy, I don't see how he does not get to 80. 100 is a stretch goal.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And I will definitely take the L. I'll take the L right now. Like, this is not.
I took the L. That's why I wrote the article. I was like, I wanted O'Neal Cruz in the 5th or 6th and not Ellie De La Cruz in the 2nd and 3rd. I'm taking a massive L.
We're not even in June. He's got 30 stolen bases. Like, I'm taking the L. Like, it's just that being said, like the process, I still stand by. Yes. And the thing I did not account for, and maybe I did account for it some because I did say, like, I do think there is a world in which I'm wrong here, but is the unicorn factor. Like the unicorn, like he is just a unicorn. Like I think he just is a really, really special talent that can overcome a lot of the massive flaws that are still kind of in the game or in the profile. That being said, like I still stand by the process because I mean there aren't unicorns that pop up like this. Like this is kind of a guy that can outrun bad underlying metrics. So you know what? If you drafted him, I'm happy for you. I hope he continues. Like I think the game of baseball is better with Ellie De La Cruz being fun and running and hitting the ball hard. Yes. And I'll be in on him next year, but or maybe I'll draft the second half league so I can get Ellie De La Cruz somewhere. So that is I forgot where I'm right now.
Yeah, where are you, dude?
Yeah, I post 5 days a week here and sometimes more at Fangraphs, sometimes less. And then I have 3 articles a week that I do on Fantasy Pros, and I'm on the Friends of Fantasy Benefits podcast as well as this one. That will wrap us up for this episode. For Jason and myself, thank you for listening. Have a fantastic baseball season.
Thanks, folks.